Good evening. Welcome to episode 8 of Blue Connections 2020. My name is Donna Ozarko, and I am manager of officials and publication for Softball Canada.
And I'm Jeff Whipple, National Director of Umpires for Softball Canada. If you've joined us before, we're excited you're able to join us again for this webinar journey. If you're new to the series, Blue Connections is designed to bring umpires together virtually to learn from some of our country's leading officials. These webinars will focus on basic techniques and expectations for officials and will reference best practices on mechanics, game management, and fitness from both WBSC and Softball Canada.
Just a reminder that all sessions will be recorded and are available on our Softball Canada Umpire YouTube channel and Facebook pages. If you have any questions for Frank, you can leave them in the chat section and we will pass the questions along to him at the end. Great umpiring starts with a solid knowledge of rules. Join international veteran Frank Omoe as he uses his experiences as an educational leader to offer some tips on how you can improve as an umpire by developing a greater understanding of the code of the game.
Frank's been umpiring since 1988. He achieved his Level 5 Fast Pitch certification in 2000 and WBSC certification in 2001. Frank has umpired at 10 Canadian Championships, at Canada Summer Games, and many international events, including the WBSC Women's World Championships in 2002 and the WBSC World Men's Championships in 2009. He supervised 4 Canadian Championships and presented sessions at 7 Blue Conventions. In 2014, he redesigned the Instructor Evaluator course.
Frank will be the first to tell you how good softball umpiring has been for him, taking him to 9 Canadian provinces and a territory and 6 US states, and giving him the opportunity to share laughs with so many great people. While most of his umpiring career has been spent doing fast pitch, some of the most enjoyable moments have been the slow pitch he umpires with 13 to 15-year-old students who would never get their pictures in a school yearbook on a sports team except for softball. Welcome everybody and enjoy Frank's fantastic facts.
Welcome Frank, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Donna, Jeff. Hi everyone, and thank you very much for joining me. This is longtime NBA referee Bob Delaney. In mid-May, my son Cameron sent me a video of a Zoom conference that featured Delaney as the guest speaker. He had some great thoughts about life in general and about officiating in particular. I found it very valuable when he spoke about the 3 stages of professional life, especially as they apply to officiating. Delaney said that the first stage is achieving believability. Believability is achieved by looking the part, having a proper demeanor, knowing the rules, and knowing the proper signals and mechanics. Once an official has believability, the second stage, credibility, starts to develop. Credibility only happens after you've served the game and developed a reputation for consistency night after night after night after night. At some point, credibility moves to the third stage, trust. Trust starts to happen when coaches, players, and your partners trust that when you walk on to the field of that game at any level, whether it be worst division, first division, provincials, Easterns, Westerns, Canadians, worlds, you are able to umpire this game. That's what we all strive for, but we can't jump over the first 2 stages to get straight to trust. That takes time. It takes time to get places. Too many of us are obsessed by fast tracking, and fast tracking is okay as long as you're not missing steps. But if you are missing the league ball, the small, and then the larger tournament ball or provincials in order to get to Canadians or World Championships, You are taking a part of your foundation and not letting it compact before you move on to the next level of ball. It takes patience within ourselves, and that's hard to have when we have lofty goals. But I digress. The focus of tonight's presentation will be on what I have titled, Own the Rulebook. One of the criteria for an occupation to be a profession is that a person in a profession possesses a body of specific knowledge that the general public does not have. Doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, masons, electricians, carpenters, mechanics, and many more, including, as many of us discovered the hard way during the first few months of COVID-19 shutdown, barbers and hairdressers all share and possess a specific body of knowledge that the general public does not. The rule book provides the body of specific knowledge that makes officiating a profession. Remember, Bob Delaney stated that a thorough rule knowledge is a big contributor to believability. The pursuit of rule knowledge needs to be a constant throughout an official's career. You know, musicians have a saying about playing skill. They say, if you don't play for a day, you lose a week of skill. If you don't play for a week, you lose a month of skill. If you don't play for a month, you lose a year of skill. I believe that that applies to umpires too, and I can attest to it as, quite honestly, I hadn't been studying the rules like I should have been over the past few years. And last August, when I accepted the call to be a last-minute fill-in at the men's and master men's Canadian Fast Pitch Championship, my emergency immersion back into the rule book and casebook showed me that I had forgotten way too much. To me, knowing the rules means understanding what the rules say. Owning the rules means understanding what the rules mean, understanding the reason for the rule, and understanding the application of the rule. How to best learn and own the rule book is different for each person. Each umpire needs to find the way that works for them. This old saying attributed to Confucius certainly applies to me. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. For me to own the rule book, I have to do the rule book. That means with players and coaches, I use the words as they are written in the rule book, but putting the rules into my own words has helped me understand them, the reasons for them, and how to apply them. Putting the rules into my own words has helped me in my career-long quest to own the rule book. The definitions are a great place to start to learn what the words mean. I call it learning the terminology. And the first example we'll look at was probably my first use of putting things into my own words: interference or obstruction. Like all former ball players who take up umpiring, I thought every collision, every blockage, stoppage, and all of the other stuff that just looks wrong while runners are running or fielders are fielding was called interference. It took an umpire clinic to be told that sometimes it's called interference, other times it's called obstruction, that it depends on who does it, and very occasionally you could have both on the same play. After listening to all the examples during that first year clinic and reading the rule book, sadly that far back, no casebook, I decided that most of the time it was batters and runners who interfered, and it was fielders who obstructed. I figured that it would be easy enough to remember and be able to call it correctly if I took the first letter from batter and the first letter from runner and added them to the word interference when I called it brinterference. And I could also remember to add the F in fielder to obstruction when I saw a fielder do it, fob-struction. And so in my first year of umpiring, I called every brinterference or fob-struction correctly, never once mixing up the two. And you know, never once having anybody on the field or the stand say, brinterference? Fob-struction? After that first year, I was sure I knew the difference. So I stopped using brinterference and fob-struction. But the habit of making the rules my own had begun. Let's go a little deeper into interference and obstruction. For interference, the rule book's keywords are that an offensive player or team member hinders, impedes, confuses a defensive player trying to make a play. In my own words, I wrote, interference is when a batter, a runner, could be a coach, on-deck hitter, bat boy, as long as they belong to the offense, impedes, hinders, confuses a fielder from fielding, catching, or throwing the ball. Now, I'd like everyone to take a good look at the picture on the next slide. You see that picture? The blue pencil crayon on the far right, that's me. As you can see, not exactly the sharpest pencil in the box. I've been umpiring for over 30 years, and those three words, impedes, hinders, confuses, haven't changed in all that time. Did you ever wonder why those three words are used? Did you ever wonder how they are different from each other and how the difference between each could help an umpire determine if interference really did or did not take place? I wondered. So I used a dictionary to determine that impedes means gets in the way of. I'm pretty sure we can all think of how a batter runner, an on-deck hitter, or a coach or bat boy can get in the way of a fielder and thereby cause interference. Hinders means delays, makes more difficult. Here's the interactive part of the webinar. When I say go, I'd like you to close your eyes and visualize a batter runner, or a runner delaying or making it more difficult for a fielder to catch, field, or throw the ball. Not getting in the way of, that's impeding, but delaying or making it more difficult. Got that? Go. Here's one, I hope you can see it. Here's one that happened to me a few years ago. It was in fast pitch. We had runners at first and second with nobody out. The first pitch came to the batter and the batter squared to sacrifice bunt as both runners took off for the next base when the pitch was released. So far, we're all good. The batter attempted to bunt the ball and missed. As the catcher caught it and cocked her arm to throw to third, the batter waved the bat up and down. The catcher double pumped and then threw to third base. The call could have gone either way, but it didn't matter. I'd already called dead ball, interference, and ruled the batter out. Her actions had hindered, delayed, made it more difficult for the catcher to throw the ball. I wasn't going to wait until all play ceased to call interference. If I'd have done that, one of the coaches could have lodged a protest that I had misinterpreted or misapplied the rule by not calling it when it happened. It was a protest that they probably could have won. So the batter was out for interference and the base runners were sent back to second and first base. We now turn to the third key word in the rule, confuses. Confuses means to cause someone to become bewildered, or perplexed. Most of the time it's done verbally, and I'll leave it to you to brainstorm at a clinic when interference can be called on a member of the offensive team doing something non-verbally to bewilder the fielders, because that does happen. Excuse me. Impedes, gets in the way of. Hinders, delays, makes it more difficult. Confuses, causes someone to become bewildered or perplexed. Slight but very important differences that I had to put into my own words to understand. Did you notice that the word collides is not in the definition of interference? Now let's look at obstruction. In my own words, the key words are when a fielder, without the ball, hinders or prevents the batter from hitting the ball. Hinders, delays, makes more difficult. A batter swings, contacts the catcher's glove before hitting the ball, but does hit the ball. Obstruction is called, the delayed dead ball signal is given because the batter's attempt to hit the ball was made more difficult, hindered, due to the action of the catcher. Now, what happens next is a whole other topic, but today we're just going to look at terminology. Prevents means stops from. The batter swings, contacts the catcher's glove, and because of that, the batter misses the ball. That's obstruction. The batter prevented, stopped the batter from hitting the ball. Impedes, gets in the way of a runner who's running. That's pretty easy to visualize, isn't it? Second base person who is told by the coach to go and play second base, but really thinks he or she is second base and gets in the way of a runner, making that runner stop, slow down, or adjust their path. That's obstruction. Or the classic two sounds. First, the thud of the collision at home, followed oh so closely by the thwack of the ball being caught by the catcher and the tag applied. That's obstruction. Putting the key words for interference and obstruction into my own words has helped me understand the two concepts. Here's another example of how putting it into my own words has helped me with terminology. A force out. The rule book says this: a force out is an out which can only be made when a runner loses the right to a base which he is occupying because the batter becomes a batter runner and before the batter runner or succeeding runner has been put out. Whew. I had to put it in my own words. A force out can only happen when a runner is put out going to the next base because they have to move. A force out cannot happen when a base runner is going back to the base he was occupying because either a succeeding, one who's behind, or the batter runner has been put out. Going back to beat a throw to a base that you left early from is not a force out or a force play. Getting put out when a line drive catches you leaning and you're diving back is not a force out. And for that matter, neither is the play at first base on a ground ball by the batter classed as a force out. Yes, the batter can only go to first base. He can't return, but it is not classed as a force out. A force out only happens to a runner who has to move to the next base. So what does all that mean? Well, it means if returning back to a base is not a force out or a force play, it becomes an appeal play, one form of a live ball appeal, which is therefore a timing play. I know that two ways that runs cannot score are, firstly, if the last out of an inning is a result of the batter runner being put out before legally touching first base. Is there anyone as old as Jeff Whipple or me and old enough to remember Fred Merkel? If you're not, Google him. It's Merkel, M-E-R-K-E-L. And the second way that runs cannot be scored are if the last out of the inning is due to a runner being forced out, going to the next base due to the batter becoming a batter runner. Last year at that Canadian Men's Fast Pitch Championship, a protest was won by the umpires because they guided the protesting coach into protesting the definition of a force out. That the protest took over 30 minutes to be ruled upon is another story for another time. I want to emphasize, I use the terminology, the exact words in the rule book when I'm speaking with coaches and players. But understanding the terminology has become much easier for me by putting the exact words into my own words. Another way that putting the rule book into my own words has helped me is by what I call dividing things into minor or major infractions. A minor infraction is doing something that can legally be done, but doing it incorrectly or forgetting to do it. And for that, there is usually a minor penalty. A major infraction is doing something that can never legally be done. And for that, we have a major penalty. Let's look at a couple of quick examples. In my own words, an illegal bat was checked, deemed legal, and has been changed to become legal. We always presume the player to be innocent when they're discovered using an illegal bat. That bat could have been used for 499 hits, but the 500th one broke down the wall inside the bat, and now it rattles. Or it caused the major dent that keeps the bat from going through the bat ring. Yes, I still carry one. I'd recommend every umpire carry one. Maybe that bat was the one used by the coach to pound in the metal peg that came loose from third base during that hard slide a couple innings ago, and now it has deep scratches or burrs. Regardless of how it happened, that when it was legal, or when it was checked legal bat, is now illegal. I call that a minor infraction. And the penalty is a minor one, removal of the bat and an out. An altered bat was never legal. It's not on the approved bat list, or it has been changed by someone to make it illegal. Somebody who knowingly and deliberately cheated. That's a major infraction and deserves a major penalty. Removal of the bat, out, and ejection. In my own words, a bat that has changed is now an illegal bat. There's a minor penalty, removal of the bat, and an out. A bat that has been changed or never was legal is an altered bat. Major penalty, removal of the bat, out, and ejection. Here's another example of what, to me, fits into either the minor or major infraction categories. Illegal player, illegal substitute, illegal reentry, ineligible player. In my own words, an illegal player is someone who can be in the game, but I wasn't told about it. A starting player who's now back in the same spot in the batting order, or a legal sub who wasn't reported to me, are illegal players. Depending on which team lets me know and when will determine if we have an infraction. A legal substitute is anyone who enters the game without that being told to me. If that happens and is appealed by the other team, I ask myself this question: can this substitution be done? If the answer is yes, it means we have a minor infraction. Examples. Nobody's told me, but a starting player is back in the game in their original place in the batting order. In fast pitch, a substitute has entered the game for the first time. A replacement player has been entered or withdrawn. The flex is hitting for the DP. The DP is playing for the flex, and the flex is not playing defense. If done right, all of those could have been legal substitutions, but they weren't done right. So the penalties are minor, ranging from no penalty and out or outs, taking the result of the play, or even a redo. Rather minor penalties for a minor infraction. Now, in every case, except where a pitch has not been thrown, the illegal player is removed from the game, not ejected, but removed. And we know that anyone who has been removed from the game is now an ineligible player. He can't play anymore. He can sit on the bench and cheer his brains out. He can coach. He can be the bat boy. He just can't play anymore. Now, if the answer to my question of can this be done is no, Houston, we have a problem. We have entered the world of major infractions. For example, nobody from that team told me, but a starting player is back in the game in a different place in the batting order. A substitute has entered the game for the second time in fast pitch. The flex is hitting for someone other than the DP. A player who was removed from the game earlier and was declared ineligible is found to be playing right field. Coach, none of those are ever legal. And if I'd been informed or even asked, I could have helped you by not allowing you to do it. But coach, you didn't ask. This is a major infraction. That starting player who's back in a different spot in the batting order, not just an illegal substitution, which will cost you an out, but an illegal re-entry too. The sub who was taken out and is now back in, illegal substitution and illegal re-entry. The flex, hitting for someone other than the DP, that's considered an illegal re-entry. Coach, you did all of those things without telling me because as a good coach, you knew you couldn't do them, but you did them anyway and hoped you wouldn't get caught. Major infractions result in major penalties. The illegal player or the illegal re-entered player is ejected. You are ejected. But wait, there's more. That player who was removed from the game earlier and was declared ineligible to play is out there playing right field. Coach, you have just committed the ultimate infraction, which carries the ultimate penalty. This game is over. You lose on a forfeit. Putting those things into my own words, such as classifying infractions as minor, major, and ultimate, has helped me distinguish between all those illegals. Maybe it'll help you too. I'm going to conclude with some quick thoughts about two of what I call the usual suspects. Rules that are misunderstood by many players, coaches, and even umpires. The DP, EP flex, and the infield fly. In each case, I've tried to take the rule and distill it down to its absolute essence to make it easier for me to understand and explain. Let's look at the DP, EP flex rule. When you get through all the logistics about where in the batting order the flex and EP, two EPs in co-ed, have to be, and starting and finishing the game with the right number of players, in my own words, it all comes down to these two guiding principles. The DP must hit and must run. She may play defense. If she's not hitting or running, someone else is hitting or running for her. That's a substitution. I need to be told. The flex must play defense and may hit or run, but only for the DP. If the flex is not out there playing defense, someone is playing for him. That's a substitution. I need to be told. In a nutshell, that is the DP-EP flex rule. If anything, throw anything that is done or wants to be done off those two principles. If it bounces, it can be done. If it don't bounce, it can't be done. The infield fly rule is easy to define in terms of when the situation could present itself and what the umpire does when it happens. But all hell usually breaks loose when a declared infield fly lands fair, either untouched or touched. I've tried to put it into what is very simple for me to remember. As soon as I declare infield fly, if fair, the batter is out, my next words are silently said to myself. I say this: catch, tag up, no force. No catch, no tag up, no force. What does it mean? Well, if caught, an infield fly is considered to be a caught ball, catch. Base runners must tag up. They can leave as soon as the infield fly is caught. And since I've declared the batter out, the force is removed. Regardless of if they tag up or leave early, they have to be tagged to be put out at the next base. If the declared infield fly falls uncaught, no catch, the runners do not have to tag up, no tag. But the force has been removed. Again, they have to be tagged to be put out at the next base. Silently saying those words, catch, tag up, no force, no catch, no tag up, no force, every time, just after I declare an infield fly, has helped me to keep my head when all those runners start panicking, the fielders start throwing the ball all over, and crazy rulings are just waiting for me to make them. To conclude, studying the rule book is not cool, like creasing your hat, which I will admit I like and I have done since 2004. Nor is studying the rule book sexy, like perfecting that absolutely beautiful called strike three signal. Learning the rules is hard and takes discipline, but to be a professional, we have to thoroughly know and understand the body of specific knowledge that sets us apart from everyone else at the ballpark. We have to own the rule book. I've shared one way of owning the rule book by putting it into my own words. What do you do to own the rule book? Thank you very much.
And thank you, Frank. That was really interesting. I loved the analogies and just those simple little tips about how you've managed to take the rule book and make it something that's personal, that you've managed to grasp and understand, which is sometimes tough for a lot of us. Rules are the basis of how we play the game, and it's the basis of how we umpire. So that was really good. A couple of quick questions for you. As always, a question from Ron Campbell. Ron says, Frank, you've said, you've talked about putting the rules into your own words. Where in the rule book is a good place to start? And I know where you're going to say.
Soupy, it's great to hear from you. And congratulations on your very recent appointment as the provincial UIC of New Brunswick. The first thing I would tell someone who would like to try putting in the rules into their own words is, do not start at the beginning of the rule book. Two reasons. Reason one, the first definition is altered bat. I already gave you that one. The second reason is because since you want to put it in your own words to help you understand the rule better, choose a rule that happens a lot and that you're not 100% sure of. If you're an umpire who's just starting out or in your first 3 to 5 years of umpiring, pick a rule from a clinic or a rule that you still scratch your head about and dive into that one. Some examples other than the ones that I've given could be overthrows, batting out of order, the pitching rule, the blood rule, and so on. If you're a more experienced umpire, I'd look at my last exam. I always do the exam in 4 parts. Firstly, as I learned from a good friend and umpire in Illinois, print the exam out. Secondly, I pretend I'm on the field and I give the answer to the question as soon as I read it, because that's what happens in the field. If I'm not 100% sure of the answer, I still answer it, but I put a star beside it. When I finish the exam, step 3 is to go back through the ones I've starred and search the rule book and or case book and find the reference that provides the correct answer. Those starred questions are really good candidates for things to put in my own words. Final step, of course, is to go back through all the questions, find the proof in the rule book or case book, and then enter it into computerized answer sheet and submit it. Hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. I like the idea of doing the exam and doing it just like you were seeing it on the field. I think that's sometimes we cheat too much and go looking for what the rule book says and not what instinctually we would normally call. Brad Craven has a question. He says, if by putting the rule book into your own words as an official, could it now backfire in terms of a coach that equally knows the rules of the game and other rule sets and pull a different wording of certain rules?
Thanks, Brad. It's a good question. Remember, I said a couple of times in conversation with the coaches and players, I use the exact terminology from the rule book. I'll use hinder, confuse, impede, prevent. But in my own words, I've put those 3 words into words that I get, I understand. So I guess that's the short answer. I don't use my own words with the coaches and players. They're for me.
How difficult is it, Frank, when you have to do a different code? Like even WBSC has some differences.
Well, again, for me, it helps to write them out side by side. I remember a long time ago, it was 2002, my first World Championship, we got a side-by-side printout of WBSC, Softball Canada, ASA rules, and they were all side-by-side, so we could just compare certain ones that had slight differences. So you got to know where you are, and when in Rome, you've got to do what the Romans do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark McLeod says, illegal substitution not announced for a starter, and maybe he's looking for something here that maybe we don't want to dig into, and discovered after the next pitch, so assume the starter is still in the game and not a substitute. Can the sub be announced at this time?
And I kind of thought we might, if we open it up to be a rules forum, we could be here all night, because you know how umpires love to come up with what ifs.
I think we'll
take
that one.
If you want to send that on to me, I'm sure the national director knows the answer. He could do it much quicker than I do. But if you want to send it on to me, Jeff, I'll give Mark and his email address. I'll give him a reply.
Cool, Mark. If you can email that question to me, I'll make sure it gets to Frank. One comment from Al Johnson: amazing instructional video, especially the major minor section. I did like how you broke those out. I thought that was a very interesting way to keep it, and it really spoke to me. I think I've done that, but not really been so clear about what I was actually doing. So I like how you crystallized that. So that's all the questions we got, Frank. I do have one more note. Somebody's got a birthday tomorrow. Don't look around, Donna. Happy birthday, Donna.
Don't expect me to sing, but happy birthday, Donna.
Hey, I want you guys to do harmonies.
That ain't gonna happen.
Come on, harmony.
So that does complete episode 8 of Blue Connections 2020. Thank you, Frank, for sharing your time and your expertise this evening. A special thanks, as always, goes out to level 5 umpire Darren Gerwar for his work as co-producer of this series. And for those of you who don't know, Darren has put a tremendous amount of work into putting this together. Just a reminder, next week, Daryl Helmer and Stuart Bowden will be talking about bat standards. So what do we do with those bats when we get to the field?
And a reminder that Blue Connections 2020 is going to be available on the Softball Canada YouTube channel and our Facebook page. And we look forward to seeing you next Sunday. And big bro, you're not supposed to tell everybody. Moose Gibson probably said about my birthday. Little troublemaker. Anyway, good night, everybody, and have a wonderful evening, and see you next Sunday.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.